out of the Hey! Summer winding down. Wow, summer winding down. It's still good running weather. Here with Jeremy Colson of Steve Vai, the Colson Drum Lab, and he's crushing it. Oh, there's the intro music. Again, he's so good, we got to introduce him twice. He's crushing it on his journey through sobriety. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about mental health and all different sorts of ways that sometimes artists anesthetize themselves, going through the whole musical journey on the road, at home, on the road, shit going on at home while you're on the road, dealing with that, different things. We're going to talk about the Steve Vai tour that Jeremy was on, because last time we spoke to him, and I couldn't believe it, I looked it up, that was last year already. That was crazy. We talked to you right before the tour. We'll talk about that, talk about a 10-mile marathon you're going to run.
Oh, no, it's actually 26.2 miles. It's a full marathon.
Oh, geez, 26.2 miles. Steven, fix that in my notes. Welcome, brother. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you doing? It's good to see you.
You too. I'm just so excited, and I want to say proud of you. Who the F am I to say I'm proud of you? But I am. I mean, to see you go through what you've been doing. And I guess what really touches me is you're so outspoken about this. You've got basically a daily vlog, making videos every day, talking about how it's going. Where's your headspace? How's your heart? I just ran a bunch of miles. I just want to tell people this, that, and the other thing. Then you're doing some drumming videos. And I think I want to tease everybody with that first. Then we'll talk about the tour. Then let's talk about life, man. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Here's Jeremy doing some really cool linear stuff. Check it out. Measure Donato, and it's like a song. It's more than just a groove. To me, it's a song, and as you listen, you know what's coming up. The cymbal choke. You got the dynamics in there with the rim taps and the cymbals. Where does that come from? What's your influence on playing that kind of stuff?
There's a couple of different influences. One, when I was obviously one of my big heroes was Neil Peart, and the way he would construct drum patterns. But the other guy who really had a huge impact on my playing when I was young was Terry Bozzio.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So from the Frank Zappa days, UK days, what
I love, it's funny. I started listening to him. I was around 15 or 16 years old, and he had come out with back when VHS tapes were big. He came out with
the Remo kit, right? The black Remo kit.
Well, that was the first one, but then he went to yeah, you're right, the Remo kit. And he came out with, there was one video he came out with, but then he came out with a 3-video thing called Melodic Drumming and the Ostinato.
Yeah.
And that series of videos was a really it really made a huge impact on the way that I heard drums and the way that I played drums, because when you have things that are when you have drum patterns that are melodic and you have these tribal rhythms, you're not so much as thinking about just playing a part along with the guitar and bass. You're actually making the drum pattern as the piece of music. And right. For me, as somebody that was, I always kind of felt alone and isolated in my youth anyway. I wasn't running and playing with a bunch of different garage bands. I mean, I was eventually, but I would go into my room and I had a big, I had 2 bass drums and 3 rack toms and rototoms and all the stuff. And I would watch Bozzio videos, and then I would go in and I would pretend to be just like him.
I love that.
And he had this one. There was a couple of things he had. He had this one thing, one of the sections of the video, and it was called linear funk. It was a linear funk pattern, and he did this thing, and it was just an orchestrated drum part, and
Perfect way to sit. Yeah.
just blew my mind. I loved it because it wasn't like, okay, here's a drum solo of a guy just going,
Right.
but at the same time, it was a piece of drum music that could be performed just as the drums. You didn't need anything in the background.
Yeah.
And then as a while back, I really got into the instrument, the didgeridoo,
Yep.
which is a circular breathing instrument. It's an Aboriginal instrument. And I started to kind of think about playing a drum pattern, and then what would it be like with a didgeridoo sound over that. So I love a lot of African rhythms and the tribalness of drums, taiko drumming, things like
Yeah.
that. It moves you in your soul.
Yeah.
And drums not being a melodic instrument per se, for me, I try to find more than just playing the standard beat.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
doing the interview. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So,
It's, you mentioned Terry's videos. I think he might have been the first one to introduce something that really peeled the brain open to make a drummer or percussionist look at creativity a whole other way. Like, hey,
yeah,
don't go with the stereotypical boundaries of what drumming's all about. I know everyone mentions pocket. Pocket's important, of course.
yeah,
Groove, duh. Groove is important. I've seen drum lines in marching bands groove, but what you're talking about is a whole other way of looking at your instrument and interpreting the melodicism of it, the rhythms, the dynamics, and all
hmm
these things. But then, like with you, mixing in playing the didgeridoo at the same time. First of all, for those of you who have never tried to blow into a didgeridoo, it's one of the hardest instruments to make sound like the way it's supposed to sound. And I lived in
yeah,
Australia for a while, and I was introduced to that instrument at an art gallery. My wife was doing showings there in at Bondi Beach in Sydney, and they had these didgeridoos. I'm like, show me how it works. And the best way she described it was make the sound a horse makes.
yeah,
Effing long can one do that? But you hear people like yourself with the circular breathing, just going on and on. It's like, how do you do that? You really got to get the armature right and your lips in shape. That's a whole other dimension while you're doing all this crazy
yeah.
stuff.
Well,
It's amazing.
thank God for the internet, because when I decided, I was influenced. There's a Australian singer songwriter guy named Xavier Rudd, who was a really big influence on me, and he kind of plays folky type of music, but he incorporated the didgeridoo into it. And there's something percussive about the didgeridoo,
Yeah.
and it adds to that low tribal sound. And one of the things in yoga and in Buddhism they talk about is there's this vibration of the om
Right.
sound, and
Yeah.
that's a certain frequency. So playing the didgeridoo, when you get to that real low sound, you feel that frequency, and it's a vibration, and it just
Yeah.
brings this sort of peace. And then for me, I really was determined to learn it. So I learned, it's all about getting the embouchure and learning how to get the drone sound, is what they call it. But
Yeah.
then the next part is the circular breathing part. So where you save air in here, and then when you spit that air out as you're inhaling, and then you can just
Yeah.
continuously do that. So then on top of that, there is the you start doing that for a while, and you're concentrating on breathing from your diaphragmatic breathing from your belly. So you start to get this almost like natural high feeling in your body, because
Yeah.
it kind of there's a lot of people that do breathing methods. I'm really into that guy Wim Hof. He
Yeah.
has a thing called the Wim Hof method, and Actually, Steve Vai showed it to me when we were in China, and I fell in love with Wim Hof. So I started doing his breathing method and the ice baths and all that stuff. But we don't realize, and yogis have been doing this for thousands of years, that what breathing, the natural sedative that breathing can bring to your body. People deal with anxiety and
Yeah, I think it creates serotonin, doesn't it?
oh,
Which is a
there's
mood lifter.
yeah,
Yeah,
serotonin, dopamine. There's all these things that they're
right.
realizing. So, and of course, in our culture, if you're having anxiety, give somebody a pill. But like, in
Right.
other places, where it's like, well, have you tried? If you're anxious, you seem to be tense. Your body's like this, and
Yeah.
when you start to breathe. So the didgeridoo was something that once I started to doing that, it made me focus a little more on my posture and breathing. And so, yeah, adding that to the drums, uh, and wanting to kind of combine the two is just, I don't know, something I thought that I could be creative with.
That's awesome. And you have been. I know that we showed that in the first interview we did last year, but I'm going to drive our producer, Steven, crazy and ask him to find one of those videos real quick and load it in the background so I could show it later in the interview. But first, before we talk about the tour with Steve Vai that you're back from, before you went into your program, let's show one more quick video, a nod to Terry Bozzio. Awesome. I just love that kind of playing. It makes me want to play. Like I'm going to play later in my studio. I got to play now.
Well, Dan, it's funny because I, obviously I've been touring for the last 3 years, just pretty much nonstop. And when you're touring with a band and you're playing specific songs every night, especially if they're very orchestrated, like Steve Vai's music, there's sections where we have improvising, but you're playing a lot of the same parts every night. So you're kind of getting into this routine of your muscle memory is playing the same kind of
Right.
things. And right now, it's a great opportunity because Steve is off doing the Beat Tour, the King Crimson thing,
Yeah.
and I'm able to go over to. Obviously, you saw those guitars in the
Yeah.
background.
That's at his place, right?
He's kindly letting me use my drums are at his studio, and so I'll just go over there, and I started setting up more of the octobans and my gong drum and bells and things like that, and my whole concept of playing right now is less about kind of going in and just, okay, I got to work on these parts for this song and remember this song and set list, and it's more about going in and that kind of stream of consciousness of just, okay, what can I come up with and create, where I'm not thinking about a song, where I'm just, the way that I kind of did when I was younger, and
Yeah.
it brings back that enthusiasm for playing drums.
You just gave me an idea. I was going to show you something on my phone, Steve. Steve, if you look up Jeremy Colson didgeridoo, you'll find. Whoops. Oh, he hears me here. Steve, if you look up Jeremy Colson didgeridoo, you'll find the video. Load it in the background, and it'll be cool. Take your time. Plenty to talk about today. I want to show you this idea that you just gave me, man. I listen to a lot of high vibrational meditation music. My wife and I transplanted about a dozen plants this morning on one of our kitchen counters. We call it the cat counter. And I put this on, and what I listen to, we'll skip the commercial. But what I listen to is the layered frequencies of 432, 528, and 963 hertz. I also listen to one that's 432, 777, and 888. And what's coming to my brain right now, and I'm going to hold this up for everybody to see and hear, is to just blast this through my PA and just play some, like you're saying, a stream of consciousness, some tribal ostinato stuff, and just, I have a really big progressive kit that I could do this on that has all kinds of sounds, from splashes to gongs, from a 18-inch to 8-inch. I got my timpani drum set up with that, and this sounds like something that would be so much fun to just see what happens with.
Yeah.
I think that would be so fun. So you've got me, like,
See
my
that?
brain's going somewhere else with music right now, and I'm really excited
Well,
about
no,
it.
that's great. I did that idea of putting on something like that and then just playing along with it, because it kind of opens up. You come up with different rhythmic ideas
Yeah.
that maybe you wouldn't have thought of, because the monotony of sitting down at the drums. I mean, it can be one of those things where, especially for me, I'll just sit down. I'm like, well, what am I gonna, I don't know what do I play?
Yeah.
What do I practice? Sometimes I'm not inspired. So to
Yeah.
try to like change things around, listen to something different, and then play, can spawn new, inspired ideas.
Yeah, perfect. I'm even thinking of doing with I got two darbukas back here, or doumbeks actually. I've got, djembes and
Yeah,
all kinds of stuff. A little
I love
four-piece
all that
kit,
stuff.
and yeah, it's so there's a lot of therapy. Like, there really is something to drum circles, folks. It's not just some hippy dippy BS. There's something about real tactile, not using sticks, your fingers, your skin of your hands and everything, literally feeling the rhythm you're creating. There's just something about that that's just different,
Yeah.
even more organic than playing on a kit with.
Well, yeah. I mean, they again, going to the therapeutic part of drums. I mean, they have drum therapy. I mean, playing rhythms.
Yeah.
They've done these studies where they how your brain waves work, and that doing that can be this sort of healing process for you, and can bring you down. And
Yeah. Oops. Someone turned the lights off. Jeremy lost his signal. And he means bring your energy down and the tension down, not bring your emotions down, of course, because the opposite happens, right? You bring your tension down and all the tightness, your vibration goes up and your emotions go back up. I can see he's trying to reconnect, and that's totally cool. And he'll be back with us in a moment, I'm sure. Maybe it's not a battery thing, because I see that he's somehow somewhat still connected. So it might just be the camera that needs to be clicked on. But I'm curious, chime in, folks. For those of you who do play hand drums, let us know. And let's go to some comments right away. We got a few people chiming in from where they're watching. Here's a couple on Facebook. Juan Maldonado, thank you, from Tucson, Arizona, exactly 2 hours and 4 minutes directly south of me. I'm in Globe, Arizona, 100 miles east of Phoenix, up in the mountains. And then we've got Tommy
there we
Ganola
go.
in some town I've never heard of called
I don't know what
Dallas.
happened there. Can you hear
That's
me?
okay. Yeah, we're still good. I've been vamping, talking about left off where we were. But yeah, you were saying how when you do that, it brings your energy down, the tightness down, and therefore our vibration and our emotions go up. And all those studies, as you mentioned, have really, proved that. It's genius. You can hear me, yeah?
I can't hear anything.
Oh, okay. It must be on your end. Let me send you a message real quick. Hold on one sec. Sorry, folks. It's technology. One sec, and then we'll I just love technology, folks. I've got such a love-hate
I don't know
relationship.
why something happened with my camera thing where I can't hear.
Maybe log off and back on. Okay. Sending Jeremy some private messages here. We'll see. I'm sure he'll get the audio going. And folks, go ahead, if you're watching, chime in. Let us know where you're watching from. And maybe I need to hold up a sign. I'll do that. Hold on one sec. Da, da, ba, da, ba, ba. And Steve's looking for a video that he might be able to load of Jeremy playing drums and didgeridoo at the same time. Can you hear me yet? Oh, okay. He's going to come back on. All good, folks. Jeremy will be right back with us. He's got some stories, some really good stories for us, too. All right. So I can't believe it was like a year ago that we talked to Jeremy. I would have guessed it was 6 months ago. And it wasn't even this year. It was right before, I think a week or so before he was leaving to go on tour with Steve Vai. So we're going to talk about the tour. Uh, he went through a lot while on the tour, being away from home and everything like that, and came back. Some things just went a little bit sideways. And in Hawaii, James. But how you do? I think you're saying hi. I thought that was an abbreviation for Hawaii. It says James commenting on YouTube. Thanks for watching. But yeah, so then Jeremy went through a recovery program and he's back. Here he is. Let's put him back up there.
Sorry.
Switch places. That's okay. That's totally okay.
I don't know what happened. The volume went off.
Well, they say that the internet's so easy to use, a drummer can do it, but I'm not so sure.
I don't think so. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I continued from where we were, talking about how it raises your vibration, lowers your tension, all of that. Let's talk about how the tour went, what was great about the performing and the camaraderie, and what some of the maybe not so great things were that came along and that do inherently come along for musicians being on the road, away from home, being on the natural high and sometimes induced high, being on the road, the fans, the crowd, the playing, the groove, the solos, all that stuff. And then you come home and next thing you're in this line that's not moving at the grocery store. Can someone please open another check? And there's that whole, it's like the military, right? They go away, they do the thing, they come back, assimilate back into civilian life. It's talk about that, starting with the tour, moving all the way into the recovery program that you're just doing so well with.
Sure. Well, it's funny you mentioned the military thing, because I always think of that. There's a movie, The Hurt Locker, where it shows at the end of the movie, it shows him in the he's this guy that goes out and he disassembles bombs and everything. And then it shows him in the supermarket. He's in like Afghanistan, disassembling bombs, and then all of a sudden he's at the supermarket and he just like there's this silence. And then at the end of the movie, it shows him going back out to Afghanistan because he needed that. And obviously it's not as extreme as that. So for me, the last 3 years, I literally was touring. Once the first COVID shot came out, the first vaccine, the first tour I did was with Sebastian Bach, and that was 3 months. So I left for that, and that was 3 months. And then I came home, and then I started the Steve Vai tour few months later, and we started in Europe, and then we did Europe, and then we came back, and then we did America, and then we came back, and then we did Europe again, and then we came back, and then we did Europe again, and then we came back, and then we went to South America, and then we came back, and then we went to China, and we went to a bunch of places, not just Shanghai or Beijing. We went all in like places where no bands have ever played before.
Wow.
I got to go to the Great Wall of China and the Terracotta Warriors and go see all this stuff. We played, we covered places in China that nobody ever did. So we were in China for like 2 weeks, and then we went to, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Vietnam, where else? Japan, and a few other places, the Asian regions. And then we came back, then we went to New Zealand, played 2 shows in New Zealand, and then we flew to Australia, and then we Australia, and then we came home after that, and then we went back out again, and we played in India for like 2 weeks.
Wow.
And we finished in India, in Calcutta, and then we came back, and then we did the G3 tour with Eric Johnson, Satriani, and us.
Right.
We did that in the States, and then we came back, and then we did the Satch Vai tour, which was 8 weeks in the States, and then it came back, and then I went out to France and filled in with this band called Moonshine Bandits. Really good guys. I did a show in France, and then I came back. So the
How do you
last,
remember all that?
well, I there's probably a lot I don't remember, but it was just so much, so much traveling. And, on top of that, I was going through I was going through a divorce, and I have a 9-year-old, and, I had a lot of ups and downs in the last 3 years. And one of the things that I was trying to keep at bay was, some of my addiction issues and my mental health issues that were causing me to, you know, put put a wrench in some of the things that I was doing. And
Yeah.
I had to confront a lot of those, whether it was going to, a detox place, and getting treatment, and looking at what was going on in my life, and looking at my trauma from when I was a child, and all these things. And the thing that I was struggling with, was the challenges from being on the road for an extended period of time, and then coming home and not being able to adjust to home life.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I learned about, one of the reasons why I loved being on the road was, first of all, you're around people, and if you get along, you're just kind of in this bubble that you don't have any responsibilities. You just don't have to think about. Everything's done for you. All you got to do is make sure you show up to sound check, and then you get to play, and then people applaud, and you feel great about yourself. And then you just kind of keep doing that. And for me, I was in this place of playing, and it was like this dopamine hit that I was getting every night from performing in front of people. And then I would come home, and I wouldn't know how to get back to like normal life.
Yeah.
I'd
Just
be
being
out.
normal. Yeah.
Yeah. And, going from being on stage, and just having this great feeling with everything, and people applauding and everything like that. And then after that, you come home, and you don't know how to, settle back in to,
Yeah.
sorry, there's somebody out here.
That's okay. That's
You
all right.
don't know how to settle back into normal life, because you come home and now you have real responsibilities. Like,
Are
you
you
have to.
there, like, given your schedule that you mentioned, are you even home long enough to get in a routine of normal life, or do you leave by the time you're just about figuring it out and feeling comfortable with it again?
Well, that was the thing for me, is I would come home and I would try to adjust back into normal life. But I was also, like I said, I was going through a divorce, and with a child, and I was medicating myself, and I was not, I was going through some real lows, depression wise, and it was causing me to kind of spiral out of control. And so what would happen is that they would have to, I would have to get some sort of help. And then they would be like, okay, are you okay to go back out on the road? And then I'd get help, and then I'd go back out on the road. I'd be fine. But then I'd come home again, and the same thing would happen. So it was like this cycle pattern of like, just get him on the road, because when he's on the road, he's okay. But when I come home, I'm not able to adjust to like normal, responsible life. And I put a lot of, I put my ex-wife through a lot, and I missed things that my daughter was doing, and it took an emotional hit on me. That's the reality. And then I got used to just kind of going out and numbing myself on the road. And not taking any responsibility for what was happening at home. So I would come home, and I wouldn't know how to handle just normal life, and I would spiral out of control. And again, I think there's a lot of musicians that can kind of understand that. It's like, because some people think that, wow, the road must be the part that's really dangerous. But for me, the road was actually the part that was kind of somewhat healthier, just because I had a routine and I had structure. Coming
Right.
home, I come home, I've, you know, made a mess of, family situations. And then I don't have structure. I don't get to play that show every night and get that dopamine hit and get that feeling of, oh yeah, look how great I am. All
Right.
of a sudden I'm left with this thing up here.
Yeah.
And this thing up here is like one of the worst things in my life, because when I'm left up here and there's nobody around and it's just me, um, that's when I can go into these dark places, and that's
Yeah.
what I would do. And so, after enough time, and I'm just thinking of these, the last 3 years. I mean, there were these highs that were like, again, playing in China and playing these amazing places and feeling this amazing feeling, and then home, and then spiraling out of control and feeling just not like you don't even want to go on, like you're just so low. So it's like
Yeah.
there was no balance at all. And like I said, going through the divorce and everything, and then having a child, and being a father was always the most important thing to me. And then you start to see, the effects and the consequences of what addiction can eventually do, and it's a real reality. And so finally it just got to that point, after touring that many years and going through what I went through, where I just broke. It
Yeah.
broke me, and I can honestly say that it just freaking broke me. And in some ways it was so devastating, because I just felt so broken. But at the same time, the only time, it was also the birth of saying, you know what, I need to look at my life a little bit differently. And here, and I need to, I'm broken, but I'm also healing, and I'm
Yeah.
healing in a new way. And now, to be just where you are, and you're not identified as, I'm this drummer, or I'm this person, this is me. You're just left
Right.
with yourself. And you're just like, well, what am I? What am I doing? What's my purpose? What is my life?
Right.
And so it caused me to go into this place of starting over in a way. And I went through a treatment place, and they were very, very supportive, and I got into just a good program. I go to therapy twice a week, and I rigorously exercise, and I'm also decided to share my journey of recovery and healing, um, on my social media. And part of that was feeling like, when we look at social media, a lot of times everybody wants to come across as everything's great. Their lives are great. I'm doing this. Look at me. I have this gig. I'm playing
Right.
here. I'm doing this. But for me, I decided I'm gonna talk about my brokenness, and my journey of healing. And as opposed to just saying something that sounds like everything's going great, I want to be completely honest, because there's a lot of people that I'm discovering, as I started doing this, have reached out to me, who have struggled with addiction and mental health issues, and all sorts of things, and they don't feel that they can express them, because everybody wants to know
Judge.
that everybody's good.
Yeah.
So that's been a big part of my journey now.
It's awesome. Yeah, when I started seeing, right after you came out of the program is when I started seeing all your videos, and it was every day. And I'm like, wow, Jeremy's really, like, I could tell you were 1,000% invested in being in the program's one thing. It's what you do with it after you're out of the program. And I could
Yeah.
see that you were just so invested, and you were really honest. Like some days you were saying, you know, I'm not doing as well today.
Yeah.
And other days you were saying, today was a great day. I just ran 10 miles. And the honesty of that and the authenticity of that, I think, is the most valuable thing that you can offer, for people who have not been through it, who might be susceptible to going through it, and of course those who are in the middle of it, and those who, for reasons of their own, keep returning to it. And
Yeah.
here's this guy saying, hey, here's my story, I went through it, and today's not that good, but
Yeah.
I'm sticking with it, I'm going through. I mean, that there's no price you could put on how valuable that is. And I just really love that you're doing that. And that's why I reached out and said, you got to come on. And if you're
Yeah.
comfortable, like I couldn't even finish getting the sentence out. If you're comfortable, oh, come on, we'll talk about it. It is great. It's great. This is so important.
Well, you know, this isn't my first rodeo with being in recovery and dealing. I mean, this is something I've struggled with throughout my life, and it's
Mm-hmm.
hereditary. You know, I lost my mother to a heroin overdose 7 years ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
My father passed away before that. My brother is a fentanyl addict, and he's homeless. And I honestly, I don't even know if he's alive right now. I haven't heard from him in a while. So drugs and alcohol and mental illness are something that, you know, it's not only something that I've dealt with, but it's been a part of my family history.
Mm-hmm.
And there was always this, I always felt this pressure on me. Like I had to do good because I didn't want, you know, I was the one that was doing good with whether it was, you know, who I was playing with or being, you know, so my fears were always like, I don't want to let it affect my career.
Right.
And eventually, as addiction does, it will affect your career, you know? And I put a lot, like I said, I put a lot of things in jeopardy. I made a lot of people worry. I made a lot of people say, is he okay to do this? I went, you know, I would go missing. I just you know, because you go in addiction, you go to these depths of despair and it's, you can go to very dark places. And for someone like myself that also, you know, I deal with mental illness with things like anxiety and trauma and depression and things like that. So when you have those two things on top of each other, you can go to some real dark places. And it's very hard to get out because you get into a cycle, especially when if your body becomes physically addicted to something or whatever it is. It's just, it can get pretty gnarly. And I really have to look at how grateful I am to just even be alive, because there were many times. So I have to remember that now every day when I wake up and remember that I'm alive and I'm clean and sober. And I'm in this state now of like, you know, some people are like, they'll talk about their career, what they're doing, all the gigs that they have. For me, I'll talk about all the, you know, I go to my outpatient program, I go to my somatic therapist, I go to my regular therapist, I go to you know, I have all these things where it's like, I've spent a lot of time working on my physical part of my body, but the mental part is something that I'm trying to spend a lot of time with right now. And getting a chance to not have anything, oh, well, I got to go back out on the road in a week. So just having this time right now to have the space to just wake up every day and to have goals of finding some balance and peace in the day. And it's a big difference from the touring, where it's like touring and then coming home and it's just like, it's like all this stuff. So trying to find this balance. And I still struggle, you know, the reason I started the rigorous exercising is I would wake up and I would be in so much anxiety and sadness, and I would just want to start crying. So I'd either get on my bike or I'd start running, and I'd be running and tears would be coming out, and I would just have to run or bike until the sadness started to at least come down a little bit, and the anxiety. And, so, but again, the biggest part is when you do stop the drink and the drugs, is now you're left to face with these issues, and you can't numb them in any way. You actually have to face them.
Right.
And that's the scary part. That's where a lot of people, why they can't face those things. And so it being prepared to, accepting and facing them, once you get through that and realize that you can, you start to get stronger, and you start to believe in yourself a little bit more, because that's, I've dealt with so much low self-esteem and just self-hatred and being so critical. And so I guess I'm just kind of in this point of learning to discover who I really am.
That's cool. Thanks for all of that. And I want to touch on a couple of things. One of the things you mentioned was, the cycle of depression, anxiety, going into these dark places because of the way we're made and our makeup and the way we're wired physically, chemically, everything like that. My wife is a therapist, and I'm a certified trainer of neuro-linguistic programming. I know that sometimes even something bad like darkness, anxiety, depression can become someone's comfort zone because at least they know what they have. It's just like being in a bad relationship. At least I know what I've got, and it's kind of the same thing. And that's what makes it so hard for people to do what you've done. And that's go through that final program that you found, and the dedication. Like you've said, you put so much work into your physical body. I mean, you're in amazing shape for an 82-year-old. Just kidding. No, you're in amazing shape. And now you're realizing it's time for me to put that kind of dedication and work into, what's up here. It's easy for that to be a comfort zone. It's easy for that to be someone's identity. And it's breaking out of our comfort zone. Success is always beyond our comfort zone, no matter how dark or how well we're doing. There's always something more outside our comfort zone. And that's a big part of the journey. If you don't mind me asking, because maybe this will help some people, and if you'd rather be private about this, I totally understand. What were your addictions?
Well, it's interesting because it started off, I mean, for me, when I discovered in high school, the minute I was so shy and insecure in high school. And then once I drank, that was like all of a sudden it calmed everything. So alcohol was always the main thing.
Yeah.
But then as I got older, I started doing other drugs, getting into cocaine, crystal meth, a lot of other stuff, prescription medications. And then one of the things that really kind of got me, which was really, it's kind of a hard thing because it led me back to the hard drugs, so I started during all this touring, 3 years ago. I had a little bit before that, I'd started smoking pot. And, there's a lot of people that can do things, moderately. I myself can't. Everything I do is to the extreme. As you can tell that my body's covered in tattoos. If I go run, I'm going to go run 15 miles. Like everything I do is extreme.
And by the way, that is in people's neurology. That's not a bad decision, and often not even a conscious one whatsoever. It's in our neurology to have an addictive personality. And addictive personality isn't always a negative thing. It depends on what addiction do we choose. Is it running or is it cocaine? So I just want to point that out for people that's really important to understand.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because then that again goes to this understanding that addiction is a disease, and that they've classified it as a disease. And that's still, for some people, a hard thing to kind of comprehend, because people still look at willpower, or they look at, the problem with addiction is that even though it's a disease, you do have wreckage that you have to take responsibility for. I take responsibility for the wreckage of, with my family and, those things. But at the same time, the minute that you're in this, you can't, the sane aspect of stopping and just being like, okay, now I have to be responsible. Once you start, you can't stop. So for me, I had started to smoke pot, and there was about a year where that's all I did. And I thought, okay, I can just do this. This is great. Like I'm not drinking. I'm not doing anything else. And I can go out and I can tour, and I'm maintaining.
It wasn't a destructive modem.
Yeah. So, but people were starting to notice these change. My ex-wife was noticing I was becoming different. But eventually what happened was that wasn't enough anymore. So it was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna also drink with it, or I'm gonna go do a line of this with it, and then it was getting into amphetamines and that kind of stuff. And adding that with the weed. So it just, at first it was just like, oh, I'm just smoking pot. It's no big deal. It's just a blah, blah, blah. But then it became, the pot with the drinking, with the meth or the cocaine or the, whatever it was. And, because I'm a drug addict. I'm an alcoholic and I'm a drug addict. Like I can't, like, that's how my brother is. That's how my mother was. My father had his issues with and to kind of come to terms with that, like I can't do stuff in moderation. And, I've been to treatment multiple times. I've struggled with this for so long, and you have to just kind of, at some point get real honest and say, there's no loophole around this. Like, this is what you have. And so the only way you're going to be able to maintain any sort of recovery and sobriety is to put your recovery first. Because what usually would happen for me is I would get into recovery and then things would start getting better. My life would start getting great. So I'd get this gig and I'd get this job, and then this would happen. Now my recovery's down here. So I would go, I don't need to focus on this right now because this gig right now.
Things are going well. Yeah.
Yeah, everything's going well. And all of a sudden, recovery doesn't become a priority. And then when you're in that situation where you don't have the tools to use to stay clean and sober, you're gonna fall apart again. And that has been the continued cycle of for me and for a lot of people.
I think recovery is a misappropriated term, because recovery sounds like a bridge, whereas recovery is an ongoing forever thing. It should be. It's the only way it'll work. But what is different about this time? Is it that you're more mature? Is it the divorce? Is it your daughter? Is it just that you realize I'll die if I don't, like, what is it that, and I'm not questioning your commitment, that, but I'm curious to help others. You've been in and out before of programs.
Yeah.
What's different about this Jeremy Colson that's making it work, that we see it working with?
Well, the fact that I'm not going to tell you anything, like, here's what I learned about the way addicts are. We're like amazing salespeople. We can pitch you that this is the last time. We can say that, oh, if I do this again, anytime I've been in treatment, I hear somebody say, oh, I can't do it again. If I do it again, I could die. It's like, no, you can do it again. People do it again all the time.
You'll forget you even thought that, said it, or know it.
Yeah. And so now I'm at this point where it's like, I think about how many times I've heard people say, well, what's different this time? Like the difference this time is that I'm going to not try to say anything and say, well, I have to walk the walk and not talk the talk. And, for me, I think there are some things now that's different, because I am also realizing that some of this childhood trauma stuff that I experienced is directly related to a lot of my addiction issues. So for the first time in my life, I'm actually I'm getting the therapy I need, because, there's recovery has many sides to it. I mean, there's the one thing of just stopping and not doing the drink or the drug. But then the other part is also, going back and looking at the reasons why.
Taking care of what that was masking, really, right?
Yeah. And I have, as you heard, I went through some really, really gnarly all my family's gone. I don't, it's hard. Like, it's taken a toll, and I saw a lot of things happen with my family that caused a lot of trauma. I had stuff happen when I was a child that caused a lot of trauma. And there are a lot of things I never really wanted to look at, and that I just am now at 46 years old, finally able to kind of like open up about and not be fearful or insecure about. And like,
how does it feel?
It's amazing. It's freeing because, and I'll say this as a man, people that talk about, if you're a man, there's this masculinity thing of like, you can't cry, you can't be sensitive, you got to be tough, you got to be blah blah blah, you got to fight, all this stuff.
It's all bullshit.
And I'm like, I'm not like that, and that's absolutely fine, and it's fine to be who I am, and to own who I am, to be proud and to be accepting of who I am. And I think the reason why drugs and alcohol were a big part of me is because when I would take those, and it would make me feel like the person I wanted to be, as opposed, because I was ashamed of who I was.
And that was all, I know you know this, but for those who don't know, that was all made up stuff in your head. That was just all you. And that's what we have to get past when we're in that state.
Yeah. And so I think, for now, what makes this different is that I have stripped away everything. I mean, I'm not doing this. I'm not cleaning up because I got to go back out on the road. I'm not cleaning up to make my wife not mad at me. I'm not cleaning up to say that, to make sure other people know that I'm okay. Because that was always what it was. I just want to make sure people know. For me now, to be able to come out on social media on my things and just say, I'm not okay, I'm broken, I'm struggling, this is really, really difficult, I cry every day, I don't know what's going on in my life. And when you become that vulnerable, that's when the healing can actually take place. Right. So to answer your question, that's what's different, is that I'm not giving a sales pitch. I'm just saying, man, every day there's times of the day that are so hard, and I break down and I cry. But then I also have times of the day where I feel such peace, and
it sounds like you're not fighting it, and that's the X factor.
Yeah.
You're just letting the process happen. Thanks for sharing all that. I hope a lot of people got something out of this. And I want to put a nice cherry on top of all of that with a video that Steve did load of Jeremy playing drums and didgeridoo. What does that even mean? Let's check it out. folks, that's all you get. You got to follow Jeremy to see more. I love that. It sounds like it could be part of a movie soundtrack, an action thriller or something. It's just good.
I am a lot of these parts that you're hearing, the stuff I've been doing at Vi's, like these. I'm planning on doing more and kind of wanting to just make songs for just to have some drum and didgeridoo things, just for for people to listen to, like for healing or just for whatever it is, to just add to ambiance and space and stuff. So that's what's inspiring me right now.
That's awesome. So I want to turn it to, probably, it's usually supposed to be, but sometimes I go off the rails, the last question, which is the Jeremy Colson fun fact. Now, we know about most people, I think, know about your athleticism. You're running in this great run for scarsfoundation.org and the Long Beach Marathon, the Long Beach Run, which is October 6th. There's a link where you can support Jeremy in there. So we know about that. But for the fun fact section today, I'd like to know, out of all those places you mentioned, Europe, USA, back to Europe, back to USA, back to Europe, over to China, over to Singapore, over to Japan, over to Vietnam, over to India, out of all those places, what was the most, however you want to put it, surprising or enchanting, or I could always go back and never get tired, and why? What's that one place that truly was just mind-blowing for you?
It's a hard question to answer because there were things about this place that were amazing. Like I loved Vietnam. I loved obviously I love India because it's you get a sense of what like real poverty is, and you get a sense of just there's something beautiful about all of it. But I really enjoyed being in New Zealand.
Nice.
And we got there. The first show we played, there was this, we were right near the ocean, and I make this a habit. I don't go to any place. If I see a body of water, wherever I am, I make sure I jump in the body of water.
Nice.
Whether it's a lake or the ocean or whatever. And New Zealand and Australia. I mean, it's beautiful out there. I love the culture, and Australia, because they play the didgeridoo, the Aboriginal culture out there, and just the people. I really enjoy. I could go back to those places anytime.
That's cool.
I really enjoyed that.
That's awesome. We have literally a minute left. I want to acknowledge some comments here. Marcel Chris Dubé, you could look back if you didn't see the whole interview. Jeremy does answer that as far as didgeridoos being good for the lungs and the body. We talk about that and the serotonin with different breathing exercises. Let's see here. Let's go up to, there's Gregor Hudson saying hello. Thank you, Stephen, for loading that video. Oh, Tony Ivanov says, you are my favorite drummer. Thank you. Oh, he means you. I'm pretty sure. James Ingram chiming in. A bunch of folks saying hi. So this is really cool. Thank you. And Jeremy, hang on the line with me after we're done here. Yeah. You're welcome anytime to talk about anything that you want: drumming, music, didgeridoos, health and wellness, running, walking, stepping in puddles, jumping in lakes, recovery, anything at all. You're always welcome. You have a second home here on Drum Talk TV. Appreciate you so much.
I always enjoy it.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother. And folks, thank you so much for joining Jeremy and myself, whether you're watching now on the live or on the archive. You could follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Vimeo, and X. And check out our membership site, www.drumtalktvbrilliance.com. I'm going to talk to Jeremy about doing something special, and that we've got live stream concerts, fan Q&As. We've got music-themed game shows. What? And the only place I know of on the internet where you can play to your favorite music, your favorite artist's official tracks, and it not get muted or pulled. So check that out, www.drumtalktvbrilliance.com. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.
I lost sound again.
Oh, that's okay. We're okay. Hold on.